Hi, folks. This is the our TV show, monthly TV show for Gay Liberation Network, and my name is Roger Fraser, and I'm the treasurer of Gay Liberation Network. And my guest tonight is the co-founder of Gay Liberation Network, Andy Thayer. And so I welcome you tonight. Well, Andy, history was made this week. And I know that many of you viewers watch us because we have we kind of often have a unique take on events, especially events of this historic magnitude. Gay Liberation does. And so I guess my first question to you is this. What is our take? What is your take on the events of the last week with respect to marriage equality here in the state of Illinois? How does it differ, in particular, say, from that of the talking heads on TV and the politicians that we've all heard from? Go ahead, Andy.
Well, the main thing is that this was a victory for the people of Illinois, that the legislators had been actually the laggards in getting on board with marriage equality. The polls had shown way back in last February, a Crain's Chicago poll had shown that an overwhelming majority, almost a 2-to-1 margin of Illinoisans, favored marriage equality. And yet the Democratic-controlled legislature, particularly Mike Madigan's House, had failed to pass equal marriage rights. Now, we had a gay Democratic legislator, Greg Harris, who, of course, was the lead sponsor in the House. He had promised to pass it in that session. He did not do that. Then he made a promise again that his fellow legislators just need a little bit more time to go back to their constituents, talk about, and they would pass the thing come the fall veto session. He said, and he promised, he said, I take them at their word on that. And they weren't going to do it. It's important to note that just a couple weeks ago, sources such as the Chicago Tribune, a number of inside sources as well, were all saying that there's no way that this thing is going to pass the fall veto session because the votes aren't there in the state legislature. But then you had on October 22nd, we're going to have some pics of that a little bit later, on October 22nd, a flood of Illinoisans went down to Springfield. It was the largest LGBT demonstration by far in that city. Some 3,000 plus folks came down in the pouring rain and demonstrated outside the Capitol, far outnumbering the anti-gay opposition that came in the next day or any other day. And that's one critical thing. The other critical thing was that ourselves and other grassroots activists were calling out Mike Madigan and his Democratic buddies by name and saying that if this bill goes down, it's a failure of the House Democratic leadership, and they will bear the blame because the people in Illinois support this thing. The people came down to Springfield to support the thing. And then, ourselves, we led some pickets outside of Greg Harris's office and demonstrated in the Capitol Rotunda against Mike Madigan with a banner drop and other things. And that's really, I think, what turned the tide. In 2 short weeks, it really shows the value of grassroots organizing and demonstrating, that you have to demand things in order to get them. If you supplicate the way that people have been doing in the run-up to the end of the spring session on May 31st, then actually that's when we were losing votes. In fact, Greg Harris, I have it on good authority, was urging activists to not organize demonstrations in the run-up to the end of the spring session on May 31st, lest it scare away legislators. And of course, what we saw was that support for the bill in the legislature rapidly eroded because the anti-gay bigots were demonstrating on a weekly basis, and unfortunately, most organizations, aside from ourselves and a few others, put no emphasis on countering those demonstrations, even though the polls are wildly in our favor.
Yes.
We should have been able to outnumber them and send a pro-gay message. Instead, the strategy from most of the leadership in the LGBT community is stay home, we'll take care of it, we'll just persuade your local legislator to do the right thing. But that's not the way that Illinois politics works. Yes. I mean, you don't pass something in the Chicago City Council by appealing to the good conscience of a city council member. I mean, that's not the way that the city council works. What passes in the city council is a function of one of two things. Rahm orders it, or people force it to pass.
Yes.
Now, in our case, it was pretty clear that Mike Madigan wasn't going to buck Cardinal George in the Catholic Archdiocese.
This is a very important consideration, and I may ask you actually to even kind of repeat some of what you've said, but I think it needs reiteration. The fall veto session was divided into two different. There was a first part and a second part, and during the first part, I believe it was near the end of October, Andy, nothing happened. I mean,
right.
The bill was not called. And there was a great deal of sentiment and feeling in our community that it would not be called until next January. Something happened between the end of that first part of the fall session and the second session, in which the bill was called and passed. Andy, what happened? Was there something that we did, or something that happened, or what happened?
It was calling out Mike Madigan by name, and we did it with placards during the day of the big October 22nd demonstration. Myself and others, a handful of others, spoke from the stage and roundly castigated the Democrats for not using their supermajority in the House to pass this thing, even though they claimed to be pro-gay. And then we published an article in the Advocate as well as Crane's Chicago Business, calling out Madigan by name and pointing to this being a failure of the House Democrats if this doesn't pass. And I think that combination of a very high-profile, very blunt criticism of the House Democratic leadership by ourselves and other grassroots activists are what carried the day. But I think it's also important to note how we got to this day in the first place. This struggle did not begin in this spring or even a year or two ago. The Gay Liberation Network and other grassroots activists around the country have been working on this issue for many, many years. I was going through some of our old clips last night, and we actually, one of our first demonstrations was way back in 2001. A pair of us took a felony bust for a demonstration of the Cook County Clerk's office, demanding that Cook County Clerk David Orr issue the damned license.
Very good.
And so this is something back then we probably had public approval in the single digits.
Yes.
It was way down the list of priorities for the LGBT community. It was really only the constant pressure that got us to the day where we finally, over the past couple of years in the United States, and then Illinois, as confirmed by that Crane's poll, finally had a majority of people on our side. It's a clear majority now, right across all demographic levels. African Americans, Latinos, Catholics, all the groups that people stereotypically point to as not supporting equal rights for LGBTs actually support equal marriage rights out of proportion of their population.
Yes.
And it's actually, probably, people in our demographic, the gay thing, trans thing aside, who are actually the laggards on white older men the Tea Party profile, who are the laggards.
Yeah.
And that was reflected also in the votes.
Andy, I'm going to stop you here for a moment because I think we have a caller, and I'd like to, this is a call-in show, so let's take a call.
Hello.
Hello, caller. You're on CAN TV.
I'm doing fine, and congratulations to your community.
Thank you.
And this lets you know just as much how much of a lying device and dividing device these polls are. Mm-hmm. As you said, we don't have the vote. Don't even pay attention to it. Let's just leave it alone. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, here it is. You won.
Right.
And it's just like it was with civil rights. It's like it is anytime they want to do something that says anti-working class or anti-community. It makes me angry. But I'm so happy that you all were vigilant. You did what you had to do to get this thing done. The vote was there all the time. And they continue to lie about how the public feels as if they actually know. They don't know, they exaggerate, and they lie. People, particularly black people, who were always says, all right, look, I don't know anybody who's really against homosexual people right now in the African American community. We've been ready for this thing.
Right.
So it makes no sense that we continue to listen to politicians who do nothing but lie to us constantly. Right. And that's the reason why we can't get things together. I don't believe in these polls. I don't believe in any of that crap. Whatever is right and giving you your freedom to marry is right. You should have had this long time ago. In fact, it is a shame that it even had to be brought before anybody to vote upon. It should have been something natural in the beginning. Thank you so much for what you've done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I mean, one thing that just should be noted, the public opinion polls were actually way in our favor, and across all demographic groups, in favor of the bill. Yet the politicians were saying, the people aren't ready for it. They were blaming regular working class folks across the state for their own backwardness. I mean, the public opinion was way ahead of the Illinois House.
Yes, isn't that so often the case?
Regular folks for their own stupidity.
That's right.
Yeah, and I guess we got another caller. This person. Why don't you read that out there?
Thank you. Question from caller. Do you worry that the equality vote can be used against other issues, such as women's rights, abortion, or religious freedom? I'm not sure how quite to take this, but I take it then that it's a question, I think, Andy, about whether this might initiate a backlash against us, the traditional family under attack, and that we also would, could have our rights, even marriage rights, restricted, rolled back, and so on. And this is a really, I think, of very important question, because it brings up the issue about what do we do now after having won a fundamental right in the state of Illinois, namely marriage equality? What's next? And I'll take this question to seg you into that. What is next for us, Andy?
Well, let me just first go back to the initial part of the question. You threw a lot out there, Roger and caller. There's this notion that rights is a zero-sum game. That if immigrants get more rights, then another group loses out. Or, if gays get more rights, then women lose out, or what have you. And it's so fundamentally against what has actually happened in history that typically when one group gets rights, it encourages other groups to go for some of the same rights. I mean, one of the things that I look to in terms of us not being able to have equal marriage rights is that it labeled the LGBT community as illegal, as not deserving equal rights. Well, one of the important slogans of the immigrant rights movement is no human being is illegal. And it's used to dehumanize a whole group of people. And my hope is that other groups that are suffering from discrimination will be able to take heart from this. And I think it's incumbent upon the LGBT community to be in solidarity. And that to me is probably the biggest next step, because I think too often we've been a gay rights only community. Everyone else can go to hell. It ignores the fact that the vast majority of our community are not white men, but are Latino, are black, are women, are trans, that we need to be in solidarity with our LGBT rainbow. That is the symbol that we've got. Because if we don't do that, then we all sink.
Yeah, we all
and
sink.
We can't limit this to equal marriage rights. There's not just legal equality, there's social equality. There's supporting our LGBT seniors, LGBT youth, preventing the horrible youth suicide rates and so forth. But,
sure.
I think we should probably be, if these callers can perhaps hold the line for a second, we probably need to go to some quick announcements here that I'll get up on the screen for us.
Sure.
You tell people what's it all about.
Sure,
okay?
I'd be glad to. Okay, Gay Liberation Network, our website, folks, is gayliberation.net. Please go to that to be updated as to, upcoming events and demonstrations and rallies. And one in particular, our enemies never sleep, and they can be relentless. And there's going to be a protest against the anti-gay. There's going to be an anti-gay fundraiser for the Americans for Truth about homosexuality. And it's going to be at the Christian Liberty Academy, 502 West Euclid Avenue in Arlington Heights. These bigots are trying to raise money, again, to roll back the gains that we've made and to try to stop ENDA in its tracks. That'll be Saturday, November 16th. That'll be next weekend. And in addition, the anti-gay bigot, the Cardinal George, is having a celebration on his retirement at the Drake Hotel, 1000 Michigan Avenue, at 6 p.m. on December 18th, 2013. We're going to be there. We're going to be there to wish him, to send him away and give him a rousing send-off from Gay Liberation Network.
Okay. Roger, I know that we've got a number of callers on. I would suggest that we start putting up some pictures of the big Springfield rally while we address some of these callers here. So we'll do that right now. And,
absolutely. Let's do it, Andy.
One of these callers here.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, caller, you're on CAN TV.
Yeah, you guys just talked about Francis George, the Archbishop of Chicago, and the outfit that's meeting at the Christian Liberty Academy. I think one of their main arguments against gay rights today, the Catholic bishops and the evangelicals alike, are saying that gay rights are an attack on religious liberty. Could you guys comment about that?
Sure. Well, I think that it's actually a recycled argument. For one, it's an argument that was used against African Americans demonstrating for their freedom in the Old South, that people were saying that the problem with African Americans getting the equal rights, it was going to violate the religious liberty of anti-gay bigot, I should say racist bigots. In fact, the late Jerry Falwell not only had a career as an anti-gay leader, he was infamous for opposing the African American Civil Rights Movement. In fact, he labeled it the Civil Wrongs Movement. And he, as a pastor, was infamous for using this same argument that is recycled today, that, the poor liberties of these religious folks is going to be violated by these evil gays wanting equal access to housing, equal access to public accommodations, and equal employment. In fact, unfortunately, the Employment Non-Discrimination Bill that just passed the U.S. Senate and the Democrats are touting as this great way that they have supported gay people has got these huge quote-unquote religious exemptions that you could drive a Mack truck through. And they basically introduced this bill full well knowing it's not going to pass the House, so that they can say to the LGBT community, look at how great and pro-gay we are. Yet when it came to it in the first 2 years of the Clinton administration, the Obama administration, 2009 through the end of 2010, when they had majorities in both houses of Congress. Of course, the employment non-discrimination bill was a dead letter back then. It's only once it became a convenient whipping boy against the Republicans that now they're touting how pro-gay they are. But it's got these horrible so-called religious exemptions.
Yeah.
The arguments that this is about religious liberty, I think, have shown to be absolute nonsense. I mean, these are the same people who not only oppose equal marriage rights, they oppose equal employment, housing, any kind of pro-LGBT measure at all. They are bigots.
Yes.
And they're using religion as a shield to justify their bigotry.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's.
Sorry, thought we had another caller there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's continue on with the unfolding of of what's ahead, Andy. You know, we need to be thinking. I mean, clearly we've got a demonstration next weekend in Arlington Heights against bigotry. There, which, as I say, never rests, never sleeps. We also have the Catholic hierarchy on the 18th celebrating the retirement of an enemy, a true enemy of LGBT rights during his tenure as cardinal. That is Francis George.
A number of the dozens and dozens of other people that are coming to that are enemies of LGBT people in their localities right around the country too. But I get what you're getting at. What do we do next?
Yeah, right. In terms of strategy, now we know that there have been some of our allies, people that we are close to, who've argued that this winning marriage rights is going to have a conservatizing effect, and it's going to actually dull the movement for radical change, and it's going to put a damper on it because it's such a mainstream kind of right to win. I mean, it encourages maybe privacy and lack of political participation. Andy, is that true? Is there any truth to that argument?
There is a truth to it. And the truth is that, and we saw this in the African American rights struggle back in the mid-1960s when we won the great wave of pro-equal rights legislation. And that was a huge gain. But you saw upper middle class African Americans, a large number of them, get off the movement. They left the movement. They had what they needed. They had legal equality with their peers. Some were making some money, and they were equal with, semi-equal, I should say. They were legally equal with, say, white upper middle class folks also. But the vast majority of African Americans still had huge grievances, and so we can't. This is going to happen in the LGBT community, and unfortunately, some of us are going to keep on struggling for the social equality we so need. But that's the topic for a whole nother show here.
Yes.
And I know that we're running out of time. We probably got to do our closing announcements here. So maybe we can go to that.
Absolutely, Andy. And thank you so much. By the way, congratulations, Andy, on your engagement to Aldo Hernandez,
yes.
And June bride or June bridegroom or whatever
grooms.
You call yourself. Two
yes,
grooms.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Roger. And now we'll just have some closing announcements, and Roger will lead us out on this here.
Okay. Remember the protest against at the anti-gay fundraiser at the Christian Liberty Academy. We're going to be out there in force 5:30 next Saturday, November 16th. And also remember on Wednesday, December 18th, the Drake Hotel, the honoring of this anti-gay Archbishop Cardinal Francis George. And 7 p.m. Wednesday, December 4th, will be our next meeting We would love to have you participate. Burger Park Cultural Center at the corner of Sheridan and Granville. Gay Liberation Network on CAN TV, GLN show on CAN TV, 6:30, Friday, December 13th is our next show. Thanks to Roger Fraser and Andy Thayer and the staff of CAN TV. GayLiberation.net is our website, and we say goodbye to all of you people in LGBT land.